Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, June 4th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Cashing in on the coronavirus. $750,000 up for grabs today, and several San Diegans are among the winners. All part of the state's $116 million Vax for the Win program, just for getting vaccinated. Here's KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
$50,000. Each one of these balls represents $50,000 check that individuals receive when they get their second shot.
Governor Newsom put on his game show host hat today as the state pulled the names of 15 vaccinated residents to win $50,000.
Number 45. There you go. San Diego, look at that. Look at that.
So we know 3 people from San Diego County have won one of the $50,000 prizes. Now, the governor says your chance of winning one of those big cash prizes, about 1 in 22 million. And your chance of winning the state Powerball, much worse odds, about 1 in 300 million.
Proud, but also mindful of the work that's in front of us.
Newsom says 70% of state residents ages 18 and over have now gotten at least their first dose, but admits motivating those still unvaccinated is not easy.
Moving from 70% of adults to 75 and beyond, that's stubborn. That's difficult work.
Aside from the big cash prizes, everyone getting vaccinated now is eligible for $50 gift cards. But today at the La Mesa Vaccination Superstation, most of the people we spoke to had no idea they were about to get gift cards.
I honestly didn't even know about that, but if I could put my name in a bucket now, I totally will, you know, I'm in.
Totally. Anybody would like anything that's free.
Carolyn Alfonso and her daughter Jasmine Brandstetter say they were a little hesitant to get vaccinated early on.
Honestly, I was a little nervous to get it only because there wasn't too much experience on it just yet. But, you know, I'm not going to second guess the medical fields and all the science behind it.
Next week, the state will choose another 15 vaccinated residents to win $50,000 again. And then 10 lucky Californians will walk away with $1.5 million apiece. The cash prizes are available for minors, too.
No, I didn't know about that.
Megan Waller from La Mesa was not aware of the incentives, and neither was 16-year-old Solene Hairston from Lakeside.
I didn't know about that at all. Even if I knew about the money, I'm not cared about the money. I'm more worried about other people's well-being and being able to get things back to normal as quickly as possible.
Officials are trying to get as many people vaccinated as possible before the state lifts nearly all COVID-19 restrictions on June 15th. Cash prize winners can stay anonymous and will be contacted directly by state officials. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
It's been a controversial issue ever since the pandemic broke out, whether or not to wear a mask. And now, just 1 week before the state's reopening date, comes a list of revised rules by Cal OSHA on wearing masks in the workplace. KPBS reporter Melissa May with details of what this means for local businesses.
To wear a mask or not wear a mask is becoming the big question. On June 15th, California is slated to return to pre-pandemic status where you don't have to wear a mask or social distance. But Cal OSHA just voted to readopt revised emergency temporary standards, which forces employers to make their employees wear a mask if not everyone in the room is vaccinated. Legal analyst and employment lawyer Dan Eaton weighs in on the recent extension.
If anyone from the outside is in that room, by definition, the employer is not going to have documentation of their vaccination status. And therefore, everyone in the room has to keep their masks on. There is an awful lot of ambiguity, such as what does it mean that everyone in a room has to be fully vaccinated? What kind of documentation does an employer have to require?
That ambiguity includes the question of what the penalties would be if businesses do not follow these guidelines. And there are concerns about the requirement to provide a respiratory mask for unvaccinated employees.
The concern is that employers are going to stockpile those and that it will stress the supply for first responders in what is expected to be a horrific coming wildfire season, as well as healthcare workers.
Then there are the issues around requesting private medical information from employees.
So as a legal matter, no. But as an ethical matter, some employers are going to decide that that is not something they want from their employees. But if they don't, it means they cannot treat their employees as fully vaccinated.
In a written statement from Petco, the company noted the recent Cal-OSHA vote and said they will work closely with expert counsel on the appropriate next steps. The San Diego-based company also said, "We strongly encourage all Petco employees who can get vaccinated to do so as soon as they are eligible. Petco is providing a one-time $75 payment to each employee who completes their COVID-19 vaccination program." The Standards Board will file the readoption rulemaking package with the Office of Administrative Law, which has 10 calendar days to review and approve the temporary workplace safety standards enforced by Cal-OSHA. Melissa May, KPBS News.
While COVID infections are down overall, a troubling trend is emerging, an increase in hospitalizations of teens. A report from the CDC tracked more than 200 people aged 12 to 17 who ended up in the hospital in the first 3 months of 2021. Almost a third were admitted to the ICU and none died. The CDC director says she is deeply concerned by the report and is urging parents to get their teens vaccinated. And if you haven't been vaccinated yet or need to help a family member find a shot, we have all the information you need on our website. Click on the vaccines link on our homepage at kpbs.org to find a location close to you. 3 people, including 2 San Diego police officers, were killed in a fiery head-on crash near the border. A woman driving a car the wrong way on I-5 smashed into the officer's unmarked car near Dairy Mart Road in San Ysidro this morning. The bodies of the officers, a man and a woman, were draped in American flags and escorted by police motorcade to the medical examiner's office. It is unclear at this time if they were on duty at the time of the crash. Mayor Todd Gloria joined the San Diego police chief and other local leaders in City Heights this morning to raise awareness about rising gun violence in San Diego and across the country. As KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler explains, approaches to solving it differ.
At the onset of the pandemic, San Diego residents turned out in droves to gun shops, worried that the deadly virus would cause a breakdown of civil society. While the worst fears of gun buyers weren't realized, there has been a significant rise in gun violence here and elsewhere. On Friday morning in City Heights, Mayor Todd Gloria marked Gun Violence Awareness Day, part of a national day of action meant to highlight the impact of gun violence on communities.
Let's be really clear. Gun violence is an epidemic in this country. In many ways, it's unique to this country. And that's why we're here, because we know it doesn't have to be this way. We want to see change in America.
Homicides in San Diego were up 35% in 2020 from the prior year, and 2/3 of the killings involved a gun. On Thursday night, Chief Nislight said a pursuit with a drunk driver ended with the recovery of a ghost gun in City Heights. A ghost gun is assembled with parts from multiple guns, so it can't be traced through firearm registries. Approaches to stemming gun violence in San Diego have differed. City Attorney Maura Elliott has helped the county lead the state in gun confiscations under the state's red flag law, which allows law enforcement to proactively take guns away from people who are at risk of committing violence. In 2020, county authorities confiscated guns in 483 separate instances. Bishop Cornelius Bowser helps lead Shafat Outreach, a San Diego faith-based organization that advocates for alternatives to the punitive approach law enforcement takes towards people likely to engage in gun violence. For example, it works with active gang members to mediate disputes in a way that avoids violence.
That's how you prevent violence and intervene in the violence. You go to those individuals that are involved in it and help them to change. Not what everybody listens, no, but you most definitely can have research has shown and data has shown that you can have an impact and decrease of violence if you reach to that population that's out there committing the violence.
Bowser is working with the city to allocate further funding for his group. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
It sounds like something out of the X-Files, but the U.S. government is preparing to issue an unclassified report to Congress detailing what it knows about a series of encounters with unidentified flying objects. As Daryl Forges reports, it represents a major shift in how U.S. officials discuss and think about these phenomena.
Sights stranger than fiction. But these are very real images from the Department of Defense of an unidentified flying object.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Or more officially, unidentified aerial phenomena spotted by pilots, including retired Lieutenant Commander Alex Dietrich, off the coast of San Diego back in 2004.
It behaved in a way that we were surprised, unnerved. It accelerated, or it almost didn't accelerate, right? It sort of jumped from spot to spot and tumbled around in a way that was unpredictable.
Incidents like these have left many on edge.
I think that what's happening here is people believe in the authority of pilots and military pilots, right?
Later this month, the first ever detailed report to Congress of what the government knows about UFOs.
So if they're seeing something and they're saying they don't understand it, that will make the average person go, oh, there must be something real and significant here.
No, the report probably won't confirm the existence of extraterrestrial life, but according to 5 sources familiar with the findings, it also does not rule out the possibility these UFOs are alien spacecraft.
I don't have any evidence that can say this belongs to any particular entity.
Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
As the pandemic wanes, business is picking up across the board, and that includes with air travel. KPBS reporter John Carroll explains why a number of airlines think San Diego is such a good bet that they are adding more and more service to our airport.
It's starting to look a lot more like 2019 at San Diego International Airport these days. Arrivals and departures are rebounding to their pre-pandemic levels. But our airport, the third busiest in California, did not escape the darkest days of the pandemic. The starkest comparison is found comparing April of 2019's numbers to April of last year.
In April of 2020, we were down 95%.
We're still not back to where we were before COVID hit, but airport spokesperson Sabrina Lopiccolo says we're getting there.
Right now, we are down about 38%, and that is a dramatic change from last year during the same time.
The ground loss during the pandemic is being made up partly by airlines adding new service to San Diego. Take Allegiant Air, for example.
We started today to Bozeman, Montana. We know there are going to be people that live in Montana that can't wait to get to the beach in San Diego. And we also know that there's going to be San Diego residents that have been locked down in the pandemic that would love to go see some national parks.
Allegiant will launch a nonstop to Des Moines, Iowa, beginning in July. Southwest continues to be the dominant carrier in San Diego with the most flights. It's launching new nonstop service to Maui beginning this weekend, and they're adding another daily flight to Honolulu. But Alaska Airlines now serves more destinations than any other airline in San Diego, including a big recent addition, JFK.
There's great demand both to San Diego and from San Diego, and we see an opening for a carrier like Alaska to come in and to make sure there's nonstop service to all the places people want to come from and go to.
Like some of their competitors, Alaska has done something that might seem counterintuitive. They've added routes during the pandemic. But Brett Catlin says Alaska is thinking about the long-term picture.
These may not be markets that turn a profit immediately, but we see long-term potential, and it was a great time to invest and to rethink about how we want to serve the community.
It's thinking like that that's very reassuring to the people that run this airport, an airport that anticipates beginning construction on a major project next year, a replacement for the aging Terminal 1.
We do anticipate eventually getting up to pre-pandemic numbers and even more passengers in that. So, this is really planning for the future.
A future that, despite its space constraints and single runway, looks to be a bright spot for post-pandemic San Diego. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The solar power industry is breathing a sigh of relief after the Assembly failed to pass a bill that would have reshaped the state's solar marketplace. Here's KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
The measure drew strong opposition from environmentalists and solar industry officials. They rallied thousands of people to speak out against a bill that would have slashed the rate utilities pay for rooftop solar and instituted $50 to $80 monthly grid access fees. Bill author Lorena Gonzalez framed the issue as one of equity because she argued non-solar residents are paying more than their fair share for energy.
It would be nice if solar rooftop solar would work for everybody, but we know it's never going to. And those people who are left out will be we will be burdening more and more unless we fix this cost shift.
AB 1139 needed 41 votes to pass the Assembly. It only got 27. Gonzalez moved the bill to inactive status on Thursday, effectively killing the measure this year.
And so while it was a victory, we remain vigilant and are continuing to advocate to protect rooftop solar.
Tara Hammond helped organize opposition to the Assembly bill. She says the fight continues because California utility regulators are considering revamping the solar market. She says engagement works.
And I think our local activists, through events, through phone calls, through emails, through meetings, through presentations, really helped shape the narrative and show the true negative impacts this bill would have had on our community.
The California Public Utilities Commission is currently reviewing 17 proposals that change how rooftop-generated electricity is paid for. Regulators could decide on changes by the end of the year. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
We have had more of the same weather over the past few days, continuing into this weekend. Coastal marine layer is still there. It's hot through our inland locations, and we will get just a subtle cool down into early next week. Only a few spots will really feel it. Some of our inland locations noticing that change. Otherwise, though, more of the same again into tonight. 62 the low for San Diego. Lots of coastal clouds out there, and those will be pretty thick places like Oceanside as we hit 59 for that low. Futurecast shows we've got already the clouds out there, and they just kind of thicken a little bit overnight tonight into tomorrow morning. After that, then we'll see the sun deteriorate them a little bit as we head through the later morning hours and the midday. But this weekend, it's again, pattern on repeat. Lots of heat continuing through our inland locations, but for us, at least right on the coast, most of those sites dealing with the clouds, helping keep things cooler until that sun really breaks out. So clouds giving way to sunshine, 71 for the high in San Diego, Mount Laguna coming in at 71, and Borrego Springs, 105 for that high. It doesn't take you much to notice that triple-digit heat. But next week, there's going to be a subtle cool down for us in a few spots. Probably not noticing it much for the coast where we keep the marine layer, but for those that are a little bit farther inland, we actually could see those temperatures drop just by about 2, 3 to 5 degrees. Coast, not much changing right into Monday or Tuesday. Low clouds giving way to sunshine and temperatures hanging out in the upper 60s, lower 70s. Inland locations, here's where we start to see a little bit of a change up for us. Lower 80s for Saturday, Sunday still in the mid 70s, and we scoot our way down touch for Monday and Tuesday. So that's going to be that subtle influence where we start to see some of that cool air make an impact. And the mountains probably more of a change than most because we'll be in the lower 70s or at least mid to upper 60s. But by Tuesday, we could actually be in the lower 60s before another warm up heading into Wednesday. That heat is never too far away this time of year. The desert shows that we'll be back to the upper 90s, then probably trying to trend warmer into the later part of next week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Ordering a cocktail to go was illegal before the pandemic, but in March of last year, that ban was relaxed when restaurants shut down. And now it may be staying a little while longer. Governor Gavin Newsom announced yesterday that businesses will be allowed to continue selling alcohol to go after the June 15th state reopening date, as long as you order a meal. This does not apply to bars that do not sell food. A restaurant manager in the Gas Lamp says the to-go drinks have been a hit.
For those who still don't feel safe on coming out, you can still take a little Joy of Cafe Sevilla, home to go.
These rules will be in place until the end of the year, but there are already a number of bills in the state legislature hoping to make it a permanent law. And restaurants were a big part of the U.S. gaining more than 500,000 jobs last month. SDSU's Miro Kopik breaks down the latest in our economic recovery in the Friday Business Report.
The latest jobs report was pretty solid, and in any other economic time,
it would be an exceptional jobs report. The economy added about 560,000 jobs, about 15% below expectations. Unemployment went down from 6.1 to 5.8%, which is important. Leisure and hospitality grew by almost 290,000 jobs, mostly in hotels, restaurants, and amusements. So whether it's Disneyland opening on April 30th or the casinos in Vegas, for the most part, most economists are seeing that the inflation is somewhat temporary because there's a lot of new pent-up demand. Employers are trying to hire across the board, and that's a challenge when you're asking people to come into the workforce all at once. So we're going to see this all start to work through over the next couple of months, especially when we're looking at GDP growth in the second quarter of almost 10%, which would be a huge record for the United States.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Biden welcomes today's job numbers. We talk with his chief economic advisor. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The old Globe Theater is new again. Well, sort of. The Balboa Park landmark will reopen its outdoor venue today for the first time since closing in March of 2020 due to the pandemic. It will have a full lineup of virtual and in-person theater planned for the summer. Officials say it will be nice to welcome back staff, the performers, and of course the public. Prior to June 15th, all seating for Globe events will be socially distanced and masks required regardless of vaccination status. The San Diego Arab Film Festival kicks off in-person and online events tomorrow. KPBS film critic Beth Accomando previews the festival, which opens and closes with Palestinian films.
Let the San Diego Arab Film Festival put a spell on you.
I put a spell on you.
This year, the festival showcases the diversity of the Arab world with films from Palestine to the Sudan to Morocco.
Better stop the things you do.
The opening night film is Najwa Najar's bewitching Between Heaven and Earth.
The story it's a love story about divorce.
A 30-something couple living in the West Bank get permission to travel to Israel to finalize their divorce. But the court insists on additional documents about the husband's late father, a famous intellectual revolutionary. And this sends them off on a road trip of discovery, says Palestinian filmmaker Najwa Najar.
They rediscover themselves and they discover the country as well, that they have been in many ways divorced from. So it's divorce on many levels, it's love under occupation, it's our lives in many different ways.
It's also a view of Palestinian life that may challenge the stereotypes that American movies and media present, especially with the recent flare-up of violence between Israel and Palestine.
I'm really happy that a film which tackles Palestinians throughout the whole country, something that is very different than what is seen on TV, what is seen in just news clips, which is just violence, so that we see the real people and how real lives are at stake. And so with everything that's going on now back home, I think it's very, very appropriate. I'm very pleased.
Palestinian films like Between Heaven and Earth and the closing night film 200 Meters often face challenges getting distributed in the U.S., says Larry Christian, co-chair of the San Diego Arab Film Festival.
They often rely on film festivals. So, yeah, that's part of our interest is in presenting films that are hard to come by and that challenge audiences.
And that challenge is to simply open your eyes to a different perspective. For Palestinian filmmakers like Najar, it's about having a voice and creating an identity.
So I think that there's getting over the fear and fighting images and fighting stereotypes. And I think that takes a lot of courage, and that is what has helped build the industry. And so it's having people tell the story in their voices, using whatever is available. Usually it's done with co-productions because it is a budding industry. But there is, and I think there's passion and there's a story and there's injustice. And I think when you have these issues and you have a weapon in your hand, which is a picture and a word, and to put it together and put music to it, and let the world see another reality. I think that creates good cinema, wherever you are in the world.
In addition to the 6 features at the Arab Film Festival, there will be 16 short films showcasing even more diversity. There will be animated films from Qatar, as well as a documentary called Haunting the West by Michael Rockovitz that looks to how artifacts from other cultures get into museums.
It was a museum, but it was also a crime palace.
All the shorts will stream online, but the features will all be in-person events at the Museum of Photographic Arts.
We really feel strongly that having an in-person film festival is important for the community and helps enhance the identity of the community for itself, and then in relation, to the larger community.
So expand your cinematic horizons with the San Diego Arab Film Festival. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
What was once lost is now found again. In this case, we're talking about a wallet missing for some 46 years. It was actually found during a remodel of a historic theater in Ventura, which had closed down due to the pandemic. And inside the wallet, photos of high school friends, some poetry, a Grateful Dead concert ticket, and something extra meaningful to the owner.
Pictures of my mom, which was really sweet because she passed away a couple years ago. Holy crap. It's hard to explain the feeling that I had because it's kind of an emotional one and an excitement one.
The theater found the wallet's owner on Facebook, who says she still remembers the day that she lost it all those years ago. Good for her. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Hope you have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.